Apex Talent Council, we have this conversation about how to bring in greater inclusion and a greater retention of women in the workforce. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of perspectives which I think are important. We have always found that the minute you talk about diversity, people start looking at how many women you have, what percentage of your workforce is women, and so on. And we take pride in the fact that we have 25 or 30% of your workforce as women. I have a constant and consistent refrain that if you are not going to have women at the top, at the very top in your organization, and if you are not able to retain them as part of the organizational growth, then things are going to be at risk over the long term. And my refrain comes from the fact that I find while we hire almost 40% or 45% at the entry level, as it starts trickling up to the top, it starts boiling down to as low as 2 or 3% in most organizations. Now, how do you find people to stay on at the very top, to get to the top and to stay on the very top? And what do you do as an organization to make that happen? Is what is going to determine your success in the long term. I'm not going to elucidate the advantages of having women in your leadership team or women in your workforce, because that's well understood, well documented, people have talked about it, research has been done, we all know. What, however, happens is that there are two things that are happening in parallel. When women start working, they start with a great amount of enthusiasm. However, the circumstances in their family situation, especially when they get married, when they have children, a lot of demands on them seem to be in conflict with the demands at work. And eventually, the forces of guilt, the forces of pressure at home tends to kind of scale their ability to continue work. And most of the time, organizations tend to be the critical cause for that failure, because organizations don't have systems and support facilities which help them to counter those moments of anxiety. And I have been personally holding on to this view that most of the leadership in organizations do not have working, I'm talking about male leadership, do not have working spouses. And what that means is that ability to understand what another woman is going through as a challenge at work is very, very, very little. If your spouse is at home, it's a homemaker, and of course it has its own duty and challenge, it is not the same as having a spouse who is going to work and dealing with the complexities. And then your ability to empathize with the realities is very, very different. So, as an organization, we have spent a lot of time trying to bring forth that understanding. We have metrics which sometimes is able to highlight whether we are losing more women from a given group or not. And we try to look at what would be the causes around it. And I would think that as we start working towards finding a greater balance and a greater representation of women at the top, we will, as organizations and as a society, we'll have to bring in a much more inclusive nature of operations. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to succeed. We do things such as we have a diversity council, which is a troika of business, HR, and women, which comes in and that looks at what needs to be done and to understand the needs of it. We conduct programs such as, we used to actually call it the diversity week, but then we renamed it as not for women only week, because what we realized was, if it was anything to do with a big color on screen, you would find that all kinds of multiple colors would be on the audience. You just won't find men in most of these conferences.